Welcome to Journeys, a MACSA podcast. I'm here today with Angela Lau, who's a piano instructor at MACSA. Angela, it's great to have you here.
Yeah, it's great for you to invite me.
Of course, absolutely. I'm excited to talk about your story, your history, your journey today. So we're going to start by taking you way back and into when you first got started in music. When you first got started, did you start with piano or was it something different?
I start with piano first,
Okay.
so my recollection is when I went by in the shopping mall back at home, there's a music shop, and I always look at the window and I'd be like, "Oh, Mom, can I enroll in some piano lessons, or can I grab a piano back home?" And because I was in kindergarten, my parents thought, "Oh, that must be like an intermittent passion, like
yes, of course.
she will fade away with
Yes.
The thought of learning piano."
Right,
but
right.
since I persist, they brought me like an electronic keyboard and
small
enroll
keyboard.
me, small
Okay,
keyboard,
okay.
and enroll me for lessons to begin with.
Okay.
And as I got more serious, after I'm not sure how long, maybe 6 months to a
Okay.
year, then they decided, okay, it's a good idea to get her a real acoustic piano.
Oh, wow.
And piano has been my main instrument since then.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot to unpack. Okay, already. Okay, so this is very interesting. So you're what, 5 years old? Is that right? You
5
said
and a
kindergarten.
half to 6.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what do you think it was? Because I'm imagining the store probably maybe had more than just piano there, right? I'm guessing. So, what was it about the piano that interested you? Do you think?
Well, as a 5-year-old, I don't know if I was thinking straight until this day because I don't know what came through my mind. But I think for most kids from Hong Kong or most Asian kids, piano is the easiest approachable instrument that you can find,
Right.
and it's easily accessible. And I've heard a lot of piano music when I grew up, so it's just my instrument to start with. And
Right,
my
right.
dad also really loves to listen to orchestral music and
Okay.
guitar music back in the days when it's a really popular instrument. And I think grew up listening to it. I really want to pick up an instrument, and it so happened to be my first instrument.
Okay. Well, that's just interesting to me because usually when people are finding an instrument that speaks to them, it's usually not completely completely out of the blue. There's some like background. There's some like there's something. So what if I recap what you're saying? So you had a sort of been exposed to the piano. You'd heard piano music. You'd heard orchestral music. You'd heard guitar music, and you could see this in this shop. And I guess obviously they were nicely displayed, right? Probably they were trying to sell pianos to parents of 5 and 6 year olds, obviously. And so there was something that interested you, and I actually think this is pretty amazing. A lot of people do start, and it makes sense. I mean, a 5 or 6 year old, you're not going to buy a 9-foot concert Grand Steinway or something for them, right? So you start with something, and then you stuck with it, but very quickly they got you an acoustic piano. That's quite a commitment for them, and kudos to them for investing in that for you. Do you remember what it was like to have the acoustic piano at your home to practice on?
It was great because it's a huge instrument for
Right.
For a 6-year-old.
Right.
So it felt very magnificent. When you're trying to say there must be some sound quality that attracted you to the instrument, I think the ability to be able to immerse your body parts, because some other instruments that I've also played, it's more localized, but the piano, it's an instrument that you couldn't grab and get hold of. You have to imagine inputting the sound,
yes,
and
that's
you
true.
get to use the pedals. You get to try to learn how to balance yourself, and I think it is one of the reasons why I really enjoyed playing the piano.
That's so interesting you say that because it's true. If with a violin or a flute or something, you're holding the instrument, and with a piano, especially when you're 6, it's much bigger than you are, right? And there's something maybe about that felt very good to you, the bigness of the instrument itself. Do you think that Am I capturing that right?
I'm always really tiny when I was small, so anything would look big on me.
Well, that's a good point. Okay.
But it does sound great to be able to create that symphonic sound. When I learned piano during my earlier days, my teacher always tell me, imagine this as a certain instrument in the orchestral family, or imagine this as a string quartet. So I always have to pick up this percussive sound of the piano and translate it into something else.
Yes. I think that's one of the fascinating things that we do as pianists is we're creating illusions a lot of the times. Not with all styles of piano music, but with some styles, certainly in classical music, we're often imitating other instruments, as you say, and in some ways we have to know, like when you imitate something, you have to know the sound of that instrument extremely well, the instrument you're imitating. I'm saying here. So anyway, but let's talk about your very first teacher then. So what was your experience like with your first teacher? Was it scary? Was it exciting? What do you remember what that was like? Your first piano teacher?
So my first piano teacher, I think we got acquainted with her because she also teaches at the music shop that is near my home.
Right.
And I switch around different teachers. And she is a teacher, I think, where university or fresh graduate from university. And I think, like most Asian families, we like to push the boundaries of how far we can go. And it's a really popular trend back in the days to take exams where we're in the ABRSM, Associate Board Exams.
Right, of course,
And when I first started piano with my first piano teacher, she was like, let's enroll Angela in grade 2 piano exam.
Wow, okay,
and
this
then,
is the beginning?
I think a couple months. And then my mom was like, no, piano exam is going to cost a lot. Let's skip the grades. And then let's do grade 4 right away instead of 2. So let's prepare it for a little longer, but let's enroll in that grade.
I see.
And then I think a fairly amount of time later on, and I switched to another teacher and continue on that process. So it was a really brief moment with my first teacher.
Okay. When you switched teachers, do you remember what the reason was you switched to that teacher?
Every time we switch piano teachers, it was a progress of me getting to the next stage, actually.
Okay.
And some of the times, because all of my teachers back in Hong Kong are female teachers, so some of the time when they are starting to build their family and they need to take time off, then I switch to another teacher, and some of the occasions I progressed to the next stage, and they recommended me to go to the next teacher.
That's very interesting, because as part of this this theme here with journeys is like, okay, you've had these, the consistency was in the piano itself, and you were devoted to piano. You loved the piano. And still you have these guides along the way, and the guides were changing a lot for you, and that's a little bit different than what I've heard from other journeys. A lot of times people will stick with a first teacher for several years, and then they'll switch right at a certain point, and then they'll switch again, and then they usually go to college at that point. But you had a lot of switching, and I'm wondering what do you have any? Of course, that was normal to you. That was just what happened. Do you have a feeling looking back on that now? Do you have a feeling was that an advantage to keep changing teachers, or was it a disadvantage, or was it just sort of like, well, that's what I did. That's what, that's just normal to me.
Certainly every time when I need to depart like teacher-student relationship with one of my teachers, I feel uneasy because I've built a good relationship with them, and I've learned a lot. And as I was growing up, from a child to a teenager, adolescence to like an adult, they shaped who I am, and as part they also observe my growth. So moving to a next stage, having to build a relationship with my next teacher is a challenge because you're going into the unknown.
Right.
So,
True.
But I get to absorb a lot of new knowledge or new ideas, concepts along the way with the new teacher. Yes.
Did you feel like do you feel like one ways one could look at that is sort of like, well, I'm going to take resonate with, what I find best in each of these teachers, and I'm gonna amalgamate that, and join that with my own self, and then in a way you've got a very rich educational background, right? Because you've got all the different styles. So I'm curious, did you feel like the teachers were coming from different teaching styles, or were they typically, a similar teaching style, even though different teachers?
I think going into maybe the fourth and fifth teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, as a child, you go through a certain stage of exams,
Absolutely.
and then competitions,
right?
And then when you got referred, and then also as part of myself growing up, I developed more independent thinking.
Yes.
And how I react to a certain style of music. Then I from my fourth and fifth teacher, then I absorbed the strategy to how to practice.
Okay.
And how to listen and play in style, because previously I was just practicing the music from the start to the beginning, and occasionally finding some trouble spots,
right,
and going that over and over again. But we were not thinking of the music structurally, or we're not thinking about, for example, performing strategies. Like, you need to anticipate going on stage and what might happen, and that's how we practice those spots.
Actually, what that reminds me of is there's a big difference in performance-oriented teaching, and I think a lot of not generally speaking, you're not going to start with a performance-oriented teacher, but when you're ready for that, it is different to work with it, because that's what you do. You have to be very strategic, and we do have a very different, our bodies change under pressure, right, and under performance stress, and it can be a nasty surprise if you're not ready for that. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of people give up performing instruments of any kind when they're not properly prepared to handle a performance. So that's good that you ended up with performance-oriented teachers when you were performing, and of course, sometimes performance-oriented teachers can be a little bit too harsh, and they can turn off people that are just getting started, which is why I think it's important to go through different stages. You want a student to love music and to be excited about music, and then at some point, though, when they're performing more, a performance-oriented teacher is the best for them to go with, if they're performing, of course. So it sounds like that's what you did. Now, I'm curious. Okay, you said fourth or fifth teacher. Okay. How many teachers did you have before you went to college, then, would you say, before college?
Let me think through. When I came to the podcast, I was driving. I'm counting. And I was like, I think it's 5, if I'm correct.
Okay, that's quite a few, because you're 6 and you're going to college, at 18?
Yes.
Right, so that's 12 years. You've had five different teachers in those 12 years. Is about. Okay, that's quite a lot, and very interesting. That, as I said, that's kind of one of the things I love about these podcasts is we get to find these little surprises that doesn't come up on your bio, right? I had 5 teachers before I graduated, because it's probably not something that you would put in a short bio, but it's very interesting in terms of I would say that you had a through line, an independence through line for yourself, right? You stayed true to the instrument, you didn't give up, right? And you took something positive from each of these people. Now, I'm curious. Okay, so were you considering? You said you played other instruments. Were there, before you decided to go to college for music? Were you considering other instruments, or were you considering another career, perhaps something else?
Yes. I think music has always been an integral part of my life. So I was definitely considering that as one of my options going to college. And during picking up subjects to study in college, I have also considered, I think, probably something related to economics or journalism, but nothing really fell through. I think somehow at that moment it was music that pops up to my mind.
Okay, but you did look at other things.
Yes.
Yeah, and so at some point, and maybe this point happened very early, for you, it sounds like, but when you decided, okay, I want to go study music in college, what was that like, and did you have a conversation with your parents about that and your teachers? Like, how did that You know what I mean? At some point, you're like, you have to actually apply, right, in an audition. So you need to tell these, people in your life, and about your decision. So I'm curious about, again, emphasizing, how did you make the decision, and then how did you communicate that to your teacher and your parents, and what did they say?
I've always been very transparent about my decisions, but I think nowadays people learn and progress as they grow, and as adults continuously as well. So at 18, maybe I wasn't very sure what the career path of a music degree will bring me, but it was just my passion driving me through. So when I informed my parents and my teachers that I'm going to go on to college auditions, I just researched the schools I want to get to, and I was also thinking, okay, so teaching and performing might be what I do after I graduate. And because my parents aren't from a musical family, and my teacher also is more oriented on the performance side, and I think everybody has a consensus that teaching and performing is the main two options after graduation. So nobody kind of walked me through all the process. So that's what I told them, and that's the positive feedback of go ahead is what they told
good.
me. Yes.
That's great. That's great. And then so you ended up going to college in London, and and that's quite a distance from Hong Kong. I mean, how did you come to the decision to go to college in London?
Because Hong Kong was once a British colony,
of course, right,
and a lot of my peers, like musical peers, also went to UK as a destination for studying music or even other subjects. So it just pops up to my mind as I do my research. I'm going to audition to this school, that school, and other schools in Hong Kong with music programs. And somehow I just landed there. So I was bringing up, when I was 18, that's my learning curve. That's what I did with my research.
Right. Well, so what it is again, that's a big jump in the journey, right? Because you're going to go from your home, and that's a big, scary time. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, I desperately wanted to get away from home, and then I did get away from home, and I was miserably homesick, and wanted to go back home, and I actually went back and studied in my hometown, and then went off to college afterwards after a while. So that's a big jump. That's what I'm saying. It's a big step. But you had friends already going to college in London, and musical friends as well. So that probably helped. You knew something. It was safe to go. You had some sort of. It wasn't like you were going to Antarctica or something to study music. You knew, had some idea. Did you go visit before you decided to go there?
I did, the summer before. I was enrolled in a summer program.
Oh, that's so good.
And I went over to observe what my future school is gonna be. And actually, as strange as I'm saying, it wasn't. I wasn't really homesick because when I was in my last year of elementary school, my school offered a boarding program. I was used to being away from home.
I see.
And I thought at that moment at 18, I thought, I was independent enough to go abroad and study. My parents had that conversation before whether to study abroad at a boarding school before going to college.
I see.
So it was always at the back of my mind that I could do this, and I could overcome it if should any circumstances that I have.
Okay, well, so you were very well prepared. I mean, you were super well prepared, and it's great that you also got to go. I mean, getting a chance to visit and be in a summer program, that is such an amazing way to get a taste of not only a city and a program, but a particular teacher to try out. And now, who did you study with then in London?
You mean as my undergraduate?
And your undergraduate, yes. And undergraduate. Oh, that's right, because you got your bachelor's and your master's there, right?
I got my bachelor's, and for my master's, I moved
that's right.
to the
That's right.
States,
Okay, I'm sorry. So for your bachelor's, who did you study with there?
So first I was with Professor Ruth Nye. She is a Australian concert pianist that studied with Claudio Rao before, and then she settled in England. And I studied with her 1 year, and she retired. So then I went into the studio of Gordon Fergus-Thompson, which is an avid interpreter of Scriabin.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, fantastic. So you that's interesting to get someone at sort of the end of their career. And then transition again. So that way you transition.
Not most of the time it wasn't my active choice, but I'm so glad that I get to work with.
Right. It sounds like great exposure to great artists. And when you were working with them, did you have initially with the first teacher? Did you have a choice of teacher, or did they assign you someone? How did you end up in her studio?
Yeah, so I do have a choice to write down my preference, and Professor Ruth Nye is one of the teachers that my last teacher in Hong Kong recommended. Like she studied briefly with.
And what was the name of your last teacher in Hong Kong?
It was Julie Kuok.
Oh, okay, yes. Great. Okay, I think it's important to mention. We have so many. We'll put them in the description when we're done with when we're done with editing the podcast. So you're in London, and eventually you come to the United States, which is yet another big leap. I think I'm sure there were some cultural differences between Hong Kong and London. And my guess is there's a few cultural differences between London and Cincinnati. So how did you? But let's talk first about how did you decide on Cincinnati?
So now, after 4 years of undergraduate studies, I came to a more sensible mind of doing more research.
Okay, you did more research.
I applied to a couple of music schools, and I decided to come to the U.S. Thinking that I'll get a more comprehensive music education with more history and theory classes, but also to be able to do my own research. Because in UK, music students are more performance oriented.
I see.
And you get a lot of gigs, engagements to perform and to be a freelance musician se. But I was looking for a more sustainable and stable teaching career or a more comprehensive approach to how to navigate my way out of school.
Gotcha. That's very smart. Very, very wise to be thinking that way. So you felt you could find that in Cincinnati. And who did you work with in Cincinnati for your master's program?
This time I stick around for the entire master and the doctorate program. So I was with Professor Soyeon Kate Lee, who is now moved to teach at the Juilliard.
Oh, fantastic. School. Wonderful. Yes. So you for the whole time. And now you're actually almost finished with your doctorate, your DMA. You're almost done. And I want to talk a little bit about your project that you're doing for your DMA project. I was excited that we got to hear this presentation, I think about 6 months ago or something. You performed and gave us this fantastic and fascinating project on composer from Hong Kong. And tell us a little bit about tell us about what it is, your project, and then how you decided to create this project.
So I think growing up, I have a more a list of program that I work with that are on the conservative side, more classical, and the most modernist that I go is to the 20th century. Maybe I play Pulong, Netrorem, or Shesky. But then, as I was thinking, I didn't really bring down to my own roots, and I didn't even, as like a fellow Hong Konger, I didn't quite dig into what are the compositions that has been offered to us to perform, and I also wanted to know the composer community back at home a lot more. So that's why I had the thought of let's do some research again.
Yes, more research.
And I found up annotated catalog done by Paige Lee from Florida State University of the Asian female composers with their list of works. And I first researched through there, and also what came in the back of my mind is when I before I left for UK to do my undergraduate studies, my former teacher, Julie Kuok, she's also a composer, and she gifted me a copy of the Birthday Dada to perform. So I performed that already before, and I thought it's a good start to try to piece up a whole program together.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool. So that your final teacher in Hong Kong, also a composer, gifts you this piece, which is very amazing to do, like to work that, and then you performed that, and so that was maybe planted a little bit of a seed in your mind, and then you did more research, and I tell you, you're a very research-oriented person, which is good because then you can find new things and find things that are interesting that people aren't doing already. I mean, for me, it was very revelatory, your presentation, because I knew none of these composers. I mean, I feel sorry that I don't know them, but I'm glad that you showed the music to us. It's such a great variety, and just wonderful music, you know. And it's also good for them, I would imagine, to have someone performing their works. And so when you and in some ways it must have been hard to select, you know, only those few, because I'm sure there's many more that you couldn't select. How did you come to that group? And if I recall, was it five composers, or?
It was 5.
It was 5 composers. Yes. Okay. So how did you, you know, I mean, with probably an abundance of choices, how did you select those and the works that you are playing?
I think I tried to find available recordings of the works that are listed in both their website and in the catalog. If there is any to listen to, I tried to see if I would anticipate or imagine myself performing it, and whether they fit well into a program. And I just try to shortlist them first. And as I'm going through them, I slowly develop the idea of the program to be of a human cycle or life in general. So my program first started with the Birthday Dada, like when you first got acquainted with the world, when you were given birth. And then the second piece, I'm thinking of my order.
Right, yes.
Okay. And then the second piece is the commission piece that I worked with composer Quan Learning, who is instructor of music technology at the University of Central Missouri.
Okay, cool.
And he and I worked on a piece to bring Cantonese opera elements into the piece, like a miniature, and having different imitations of Chinese instruments, for example, opera gongs and wooden block. And we thought it's a good way to introduce our culture to the American audience, because that's where I first performed at my graduate school in Cincinnati. And I think this is a good sign to show that Hong Kong is a melting pot. And
that's a good point, right?
And that's like a part of my life theme. And then I brought the more nature side of me into the program with 3 Chinese paintings by Pushan Cheng, and it's paintings that are drawn by Wu Guangzhong. Wu Guangzhong about lotus ponds, wildleaf flowers, and cloudy mountains. And then to add on, it was the 5 sketches of water by Hong Ki Cheng, also about nature. And by ending the program, I brought the more spiritual side of life. It's 6 Phenomena by Bun Ching Lam. It's more a sadness, and brought the spiritual aspect or questioning side to leave an open ending to my program.
Yeah, that's a beautiful description, and I've seen this, and actually those paintings and were amazingly beautiful, the lotus-oriented paintings. And I remember you sharing with us the about the Chinese opera and what elements are used on the piano, and it was quite striking. And I just remember, and it's been several months, and I remember it very clearly, that it was a very compelling and eye-opening and ear-opening experience. It's wonderful art and music, and it's. I don't know if I picked up at the time. You may have mentioned it, but in terms of your life cycle with that as well. And so, when are you going to? Is this presentation still in the future for the DMA with this, or has that already been completed?
I'm looking forward to seek opportunities to present this again, maybe in some conference, and if there are future collaborations with some of the composers, and maybe I could present that again.
Awesome.
And I'm still in the conversation with some of the composers after I performed and I showed them their recordings. And I think one of the positive ends of this project is I learned how to work with living composers.
Which is so amazing, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because not many times that of what you're studying, or if you're not actively approaching, that you know how to work with different composers. Because before I've thought, composers are really really introvert, or composers are in their own world, musical world. Yes. And I don't know how to reach out to them, or you think we're in a different spectrum. But working with different composers, I figure out, we are all human beings, and we're all growing at our different life stages. We experience different things, and they all have their own wisdoms and their own approach to their life into their writings. So I learned a lot in how to communicate and how to understand their music, and sometimes by researching their interviews.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's one of the things we are blessed with living composers, is that we can get to know them, and we do forget that composers. I think this is a big mistake in classical music with non-living composers, is that we tend to not think of them as human beings, and we tend to, and that makes it very hard to approach and meld with their works on that human side, and that's very much a part of it. And when you're working with living composers, especially multiple living composers, you're seeing all those different personality styles, and it's a collaboration, and it's a living collaboration, and I'm sure it has to have impacted your study of what I'm going to call non-living composers, to work with these composers that can actually email or talk to. Well, that's amazing. So before we wrap up, what do you have in terms of other, besides these this work with these living composers? Are there other works that are that you're studying right now that you're excited about?
Now I'm rearing back, because I've worked with a modern composers project. I'm currently trying to work on Chopin's Nocturne and Prokofiev's Sonata No. 8. But since now I've got more teaching duties, that I sort of put this learning new repertoire at the side. Understood. As I prepare for my 2-piano recital as well.
Right, of course, yes. And at some point we'll have you both on. You're part of Duo Orchid, and you guys perform all over. And sometimes we'll have you both on to talk about your story as a duo. But I particularly wanted to talk to you individually first. But anyway, keep going. I interrupted you. Sorry. So you're working on Prokofiev 8th, and then a Chopin Nocturne, and the duo piano stuff at the same time, and teaching a lot. That's a lot of things.
Yeah. So. One of the main things I learned throughout my journey is time management.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Yes, so critical.
So at times I was thinking, should I keep an alarm of doing each of the tasks that I have assigned for myself for the day? And I realized sometimes it doesn't work quite well that way, of just restricting that time frame to do a certain task. But I do set reminders of what I should get done by the day. But time management, not just as a musician, like for example, to be there to play and collaborate with somebody, and to be there to teach, and then be there to perform. But sometimes it's more about getting to my daily lives, like how to get my chores done.
Absolutely.
How to do my meal prep.
Yes.
And how to find time to talk to my family and friends.
Of course.
And it's just about managing time. If you do that well, you'll manage your other aspect of your life well.
That's great wisdom. We are journeying. On our journey, we have to eat. We have to have friends. We have to have helpers. We have to have guides. We have to work on ourselves. We have to do so many things, and it is hard to manage time. but some people don't make that a priority to focus on learning how to manage time and experimenting, and you can get really tied in knots, if you're not careful. So it's good that you're managing all of these things. But anyway, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been such a pleasure to speak with you about your journey, and thank you all for also joining us today. I wish you well on your journey and look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.